A Journey Through the Shadows. Neil, a young man in his late 20s, found solace in the chaos of the bustling metropolitan city where he worked for a multinational corporation. The fast-paced lifestyle, the towering skyscrapers, and the never-ending hum of the city's energy surrounded him day in and day out. But every year, there was one thing he looked forward to with unwavering excitement: the festival season, which beckoned him back to his hometown. Neil's hometown was nestled in the heart of the countryside, far from the glitz and glamour of the city lights. And it was during this annual pilgrimage that Neil embarked on a remarkable adventure, an overnight bus journey that would take him from the concrete jungle to the untamed wilderness. As the festival approached, anticipation filled Neil's heart. He eagerly awaited the moment when he would board the familiar bus that would transport him through the night, weaving through jungles, traversing lonely areas, and navigating treacherous mountain passes. Neil found a peculiar thrill in the spooky ambience of the nocturnal journey. It was more than just a means of transportation, it was a journey into the unknown. The combination of the eerie silence that enveloped the night and the untamed nature surrounding the winding roads fueled his imagination. The hushed whispers of the wind seemed to share secrets only the night could keep, and the rustling of leaves conjured images of hidden creatures lurking just beyond the reach of his vision. In the depths of the night, Neil's imagination ran wild. The vivid tapestry of his thoughts wove tales of ancient myths, mysterious creatures lurking in the dark, and forgotten legends waiting to be unraveled. The occasional hoot of an owl or the distant howl of a wolf only served to enhance the enigmatic atmosphere, feeding Neil's fascination for the eerie and unknown. And as Neil embarked on yet another nocturnal odyssey, his heart swelled with anticipation. Little did he know that this year's journey would be different, that it would hold within it a series of events that would challenge his perception of the world, and plunge him into an adventure beyond his wildest dreams. Finally the day arrived and Neil found himself boarding the bus at 6 p.m., looking forward to the familiar excitement of the journey. As usual, the bus made a stop at a restaurant for dinner around 9 p.m. Neil enjoyed a satisfying meal, and at 9:30 p.m., the bus resumed its course. Neil relished the enchanting night, savoring the mysterious allure of the journey through lonely stretches, dense forests, and winding mountain passes. At 2 p.m. the bus had made its routine stop at the petrol pump for refueling and refreshment, and most of the passengers had ventured out to enjoy the refreshing evening breeze. The night air was cool and crisp as Neil sat on the bench outside the deserted store, savoring the peaceful ambience. Neil, too, embraced the tranquility of the moment, his thoughts immersed in the haunting allure of the darkened path that lay ahead. Overwhelmed by weariness, Neil's heavy eyelids succumbed to the weight of sleep. Time slipped away, and his slumber was undisturbed until a sudden jolt of awareness jarred him awake. With a racing heart, he scanned his surroundings, only to be greeted by an eerie emptiness. The bus, the other passengers, and even the familiar store had vanished, leaving behind a sense of desolation. A shiver ran down Neil's spine as he realized the gravity of his situation. The store's door remained tightly shut, impervious to his knocking. Desperation crept into his voice as he called out for assistance, but the only response was the haunting echo of his own cries. The silence that engulfed him was oppressive, magnifying his growing fear. Neil's trembling hands reached for his cell phone, hoping for a glimmer of hope in the form of a network signal. Disappointment washed over him as he discovered the absence of any coverage. The illuminated screen mocked him, displaying the time, 3:13 a.m., a haunting reminder of the late hour and his increasing vulnerability. With trembling hands, Neil tried to make a few calls, but the cruel reality of no coverage mocked him, leaving him stranded in a world of silence and isolation. Neil knocked on the door of the store, but there was no response. Overwhelmed by fear, he shouted and screamed for help, but his desperate pleas echoed into the empty night. Helplessly, he resolved to wait on the bench, hoping someone would eventually come to his aid. As he sat there, the scary stories he once relished during his travels began to haunt his thoughts. The vast expanse of darkness he had enjoyed only an hour ago now petrified him, and he couldn't bear to look in that direction. But curiosity overcame his fear, and he turned his gaze toward the road. To his horror, he noticed a figure emerging from the darkness, headed in his direction. Initially, a sense of relief washed over him, believing that help had finally arrived. However, as the figure drew nearer, bathed in the light, Neil's spine chilled to the core. The person approaching him was headless, running with outstretched arms. He recognized this gruesome sight from the stories he had heard, the evil spirit that hunted lonely individuals in the darkness, seeking to separate their heads from their bodies. Panic consumed Neil, and he began to flee for his life, his pounding footsteps echoing in the night. As Neil sprinted through the darkness, fear amplified by the chilling sounds of the surrounding jungle, he found himself immersed in a nightmarish reality. The very terrors he had once relished as stories now unfolded before him in vivid detail. He was tormented by the cries of unseen creatures and the ominous rustling of leaves, each sound intensifying his terror. Exhaustion eventually caught up with Neil, draining his energy until he could run no longer.